Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back. Brennan again, inside the car, outside of the gym. It has been a long time since we've been able to do this a little bit face to face. Normally I jump just straight into the action, and in most social situations you can't just do that. You do have to do a little bit of whining and dining before the action starts. Now as part of that, I want to kind of just fill you in on this meet prep. How's it going? We're going to be finishing fairly soon, so this is actually the last week of my programming, and then we jump into the peaking phase. So there's basically 3 different blocks as well as a peaking phase on top of that. Roughly it runs 12 weeks, so this is going to be, I believe, week 8, I think. So starting today, there's 4 weeks left. But as part of that, I want to kind of just let you know it's very difficult for me to do a lot of these videos. I haven't had a ton of time between work, between planning for the wedding, which is slowly creeping up on us. Stuff is getting fairly real. I haven't had a lot of time to make a lot of videos, and that's why this content for the most part has really just been meet prep. So you will be seeing my meet very, very soon. Too soon for some of you. And as part of that, I always try to throw in a little bit extra in the very beginning, sometimes a little bit of an original clip. And I say that only because it's very difficult to make things different each and every time. In fact, if you pay attention to my YouTube channel as well as many other YouTube channels, we tend to rehash a lot of the same stuff. So I've been trying to keep these a little bit fresh, trying to keep you on your toes just a bit. So I thought I'd go ahead and reintroduce this car talk, only because it's been so long. And on top of that, I will throw in a full day of eating, but full disclosure, this is going to be a very expedited version, because literally I don't expect you to watch 20 to 30 minutes of me just showing you my food and talking about it. I'm just gonna show you what I have, talk about it briefly, and show you the macros. So we'll jump into that, and then we'll jump full on into the meat prep, that is. So first meal of the day. Now this was filmed on a Sunday, an off day from the gym, and it's close to what I have on a typical day-to-day basis. I'll almost always have eggs, and as of late I've been having a lot of these shredded potatoes. Sometimes I'll have oatmeal instead, or maybe a bagel. I don't always have these pancakes, but since it's Sunday I had a little bit more time, I decided to do that. Again, typically eggs, carb source, and then I'll also have like a protein shake to get my protein numbers up. As you can see in this case, this meal is very carb dominated, so I'll have to make sure to make up for that the rest of the day. So for the next meal, I decided to even it out a little bit by adding a little bit more protein and taking away some of the carbs. So we have more protein and carbs than this meal. And for the most part, I don't track things like salsa or lettuce. So you'll just see 3 ingredients here really, which is just some of this instant rice, about a cup worth, some holy guacamole, and then just some chicken. So quick and easy and to the point. Very Mexican inspired, I'd say. Next thing we have is just a barbecue chicken pizza. This is a thin crust version. The numbers fit right within my numbers, so there's not much to say besides this. This one's pretty good because it's easy to eat, and it's not like the rise and crust pizza where maybe you get a little bit fuller. The macros are a little bit heavier, so to say. Next up, just a plain turkey sandwich. Nothing special here, just some double protein bread to help get the numbers up just a little bit. 4 ounces of turkey, some shredded lettuce, and some spicy ass mustard. Now, one of the things you'll notice with some of these meals whenever I do these videos is some things seem a little bit random, and that's because I don't really plan these out throughout the course of the day. I just eat what I want, and then depending on what I need to do in order to hit my numbers, I'll have certain things that'll help me get there a little bit easier. So last meal of the day, just 2 servings of Dan & Light & Fit toasted coconut vanilla yogurt. If you haven't tried this, give it a shot. My favorite yogurt by far. Then just a serving of Stop & Shop low-fat granola. And I like to have this from time to time at the end of the night or with my lunch in most cases, just because it's a great snack. As far as the actual macros go for this, as the Beyonce plays with the lights to fuck with me, you can see that my macros are right about in line. Because this was an off day, I'm not really mad that I didn't necessarily hit my caloric goal, but I'm around where I want to be, and that's all that matters. Now let's get to that meat prep. All right, deadlift strength day on the books today, and it called for 470 for 5 sets of 3. So you can actually see here I'm doing 495, and that is again because on the strength days I allow myself to push the numbers, go for PRs, whatever. Now this isn't a PR for me, but I wanted to use more weight, and let's face it, 5 plates on the side looks a lot better. So 5 sets of 3 here. Speaking of looking better, I can't say the same about my outfit today with that yellow coordination and the Batman going, which I guess means my Inzer belt now doubles as a utility belt. Now, overall on these deadlifts, I was happy with how the weight moved. Looking at the form, it's probably not textbook, but as I stated in my last video when I talked about my squats, as of right now, I'm just going with what feels good.
And for this is the form that lets me feel the best in terms of moving weight and overall body. What I mean by that is oftentimes when I try to force myself into what is known as textbook, it's not natural for me, be it my mobility, my structure, whatever the case is, and it really throws me off, maybe not being able to move as much weight or being sore the next day in my lower back, whatever it is. So for what you're seeing here, this actually leaves me with no issues whatsoever, so I'm gonna keep on doing it. Now, as I mentioned in the car, this is my last real week of training, so I believe this is the 9th week of the training cycle. It's a 12-week program broken up into 3 different blocks of 3 weeks each with a 3-week peaking phase at the end. So starting next week, I'll be peaking, which will be very interesting only because it's the first time I've really done that as part of this routine, as well as I'll actually be in Kansas City for a majority of next week for work. So I'm going to have to reach out to a couple of gyms and see if I can actually film there, because I want to make sure that I get all this meat in camera. Typically, you need a wide angle lens for that. Now from there, we moved on to alternate stance deadlifts. This is the first time I've done sumo in quite a while. Just did 4 sets of 5 of 315, so nothing heavy, nothing too taxing. I then moved on to back squats, and I did a couple of warm-up sets before, and things were feeling really good, which is surprising only because, again, we've done quite a bit of volume with quite a bit of intensity up to this point. And I worked up to a 3x5 at 405, and I think you can see here that my depth is a lot better than it's been, and I've mentioned this in the past, my depth always feels really good after heavy deadlifts. If only that was the case at a competition where you would actually deadlift first, I think I'd be in the money. So it'll be interesting to see how this translates over, but squats were moving very good this day. I tried to get a couple of different angles, and I don't normally film a lot of the actual sets for the assistance work, but the reason I try to do that for squats is just so I can see exactly what I'm doing, where I can improve upon. And also, you can also get a good idea about how angles can play a big role in judging depth, because I know this is a common discussion when people have their own meets and maybe they get red lighted from certain angles. It doesn't look, or it does look like the hip parallel. It's really important that you get the right angle to see. And for me, the side view is the best. It's really tough to tell from the back, the front, or even one of these like 3/4 views that you're seeing right here. So just something to take into consideration if you're planning on filming yourself working out. Now, although these deadlift days have been probably some of the most taxing of the entire program with heavy deadlifts and squats and some other heavy barbell assistance exercises, it's by far been the most enjoyable day. I just feel a lot more accomplished having moved a lot of weight in these big compound movements, as opposed to, let's say, a couple of years ago when I was doing more bodybuilding style training with higher reps and lots of exercises for the same body part, but nothing that was heavy or that challenging. It was just boring in my opinion, and that's one of the main reasons why I transitioned over more into strength training, just because I get more enjoyment out of it and it really motivates me to go to the gym more. Now, I finished this day with a pulling movement, did some lat pull downs. I wanted to do close grip pull downs, but someone else was using the attachment, so just got these in for the sake of doing them. 4 sets of 12, nothing overly heavy, just moving weight to move weight in this case. And that wraps up the first day of training. So the next day, Tuesday, which was March 3rd, we had a bench speed day. And this was interesting to me only because doing a speed day with paused reps, and Tuesday is my pause day, was something I wasn't really accustomed to, and it kind of threw me off a little bit because they're very contradictory ideas in my opinion. So what I tried to do is get a pause on my chest and then explode up. But a big part of that problem is I found that my shoulders were coming untucked a little. So I just tried to get through these as best I could. The program actually had called for 200 pounds, but I just bumped it up to 205. Again, I've been in that mindset where I want to round the weights up if possible, and I'm trying to cut out some of the fluff around it as far as the setup goes, just to expedite these clips, because again, it's not a lot of heavy weights, nothing overly impressive, but I do want to still get all the main movements in for barbell on film. So I get a lot of questions about the bands, and I've mentioned it before, but just to reiterate, the reason I use them is it helps make the bench stickier, so more akin to like a powerlifting competition style bench. As part of that too, you'll notice I don't have a huge arch. I'm just not able to. And when you have a larger arch and you have more leg drive, it's very easy to drive your traps and your shoulders into the bench. I can't do that, so having the bands on there helps me as well. From there, we moved on to floor press. I ended up doing a 3x3 with 315, which is a PR, first of all, so I've never tried 315 on floor press before, let alone for 3 reps, let alone for 3 sets. So I was very happy with this. Had a spot there just in case. I like to throw a spot in there if I'm doing something I haven't done before. From there, we moved on to incline barbell bench press. I thought about doing dumbbells, and I was like, you know what? Yesterday, I'd done a ton of compound movements of the barbell. Let's kind of just keep this trend up. And plus, I just like barbell movements more than dumbbell. Did 3 sets of 8 here at 225, and I was pretty happy with how this moved. Again, considering the fact that I've already done a lot of volume, not to mention a lot of weight on those floor presses. So very happy with how my bench is progressing. Finally, to end the day, I like to do some tricep work on these pressing days, so you guys see me at this station all the time, just some tricep extensions. I don't really worry about the weight here. Again, one of the things I've noticed in going to different gyms is you'll find that the resistance is different, even though it might say the weight is the same. So 100 pounds at this gym might feel heavier or lighter depending on where you go. So I don't really worry about that, just about how it feels in the triceps. I did 3 sets of 10 here just as kind of a finisher, if you will. As always, you can find out more information about all my workout in Fitocracy. I log everything. It's always linked in the description box below. In the meantime, as always, thanks for watching and stay big. Let's just throw a 45 on there. Now, speaking of being on point this particular day in terms of weight, I can't necessarily